Hello, this is Andre Davis, and about 3 years ago, I did a series of YouTube videos that focused on the following question. What are the things holding America back from the realization of successful, affluent African American communities being the norm and not the exception? And this is not to the exclusion of other people. And I'm not talking about gentrification where you have an unsuccessful African American community being gentrified by successful entrepreneurs. During my lifetime, the answer to that question, if it's ever brought up, has been racism. The narrative has been racism. Let's see about that. So, what you're about to hear is me addressing certain issues that I felt were important issues to discuss in figuring out the answer to that question of why affluent African American communities are the exception and not the rule. The subject matter basically inspired me to write the book that you're looking at. It's a award-winning book, definitely worth a read. But after I wrote the book, that brought up more questions, led me down a rabbit hole that's been very interesting and has led to me writing another book that will address basically the origins of that narrative, the beneficiaries of that narrative, how that narrative has been detrimental to America in general and African Americans specifically, white Americans indirectly and directly in some cases. But for now, I just want to revisit some topics that I explored back in 2016. Hope you enjoy it. And if you're looking for a good book to read, check out Our Two Societies. You can find it on Amazon in print or on Audible. Here you go. When it comes to race relations, I mean, aren't you tired of black versus white, racist versus victim? I know I am. Okay, so the journey to this microphone started in 2003. I was in law school and I was in a jurisprudence class, and the topic of the day was affirmative action. And my professor, a white, middle-aged white guy, very successful in his profession as an attorney turned law professor, he expressed his opinion about affirmative action as follows. Hey, it's a great opportunity for blacks in America to go to better schools that lead to better jobs, which should lead to more money, which should allow them to move into my affluent neighborhood like mine. And yeah, that sounds great. Whoop-de-doo. Been hearing that all my life. But something struck me about that. And I asked him, why should I aspire to live in your neighborhood? And he was somewhat taken aback by the question. I didn't mean anything by it. I mean, it was a legitimate question to me. Like, why should I go through all this blood, sweat, and tears, so to speak, to move into your neighborhood? And my white classmates were, here comes the angry black man. But that wasn't the case. I mean, I just had a legitimate question. I thought it was a legitimate question. And, that day we really he couldn't give me a good answer. The class couldn't give me a good answer. And I couldn't give myself a good answer. And at the end of the day, I don't think it's a question for my white professor or my white classmates to answer. I think it's a question for Black America to answer. And I can hear it now. Is racism food? This is the end of the discussion. Drop the mic. I'm out. Peace. But I think it's something else out there, and I think it's about time for someone to explore the possibility that racism isn't the all and be all of Black America's problems. So with that, um, I have a dream too. Martin Luther King had a dream, and I have a dream too. Not comparing myself to him, but I think it's appropriate. That I love to see a day when people want to live in an all Black neighborhood because it makes them feel affluent. Not to exclude anyone, but just you got a nice neighborhood over here and it's full of Black folks, and everyone considers it an affluent neighborhood, not just Black people, but everyone. And I want to discuss what's holding that dream back from becoming a reality, other than just a simple blanket racism. Okay, so I'll be using this platform to discuss issues that I feel are holding Black people back from that level of, let's say, social equality. Okay, and hopefully you'll come along with me on this journey. I'll give you my background in probably the next episode, or if not the one after that. But so let's go on this journey together and see what we come up with. And at the end of the day, hopefully we can come up with some concrete answers to that question and an action plan that's reasonable. And maybe we can see that one day. But I'll start today with this. Have you ever noticed that demands are put upon affluent Blacks to go back to the hood and help other Blacks escape poverty, but no one asks affluent whites to help poor whites get out of poverty? And the common response to that will be, well, duh, there's no systematic racism holding poor whites in poverty. It's their values, beliefs, and priorities holding them back. And I would say, well, so if systematic racism is a thing holding many Blacks in poverty, how can you explain any affluent Blacks? How do those Black doctors, lawyers, engineers, private investors, and CEOs manage to become affluent? Could it be their values, beliefs, and priorities are responsible for their affluence? I think so. We can't choose how we're born, but we can choose how we live. And values, beliefs, and priorities that lead to affluence, hey, they're open source material. No race owns a copyright, trademark, or patent on these things. Being Black is not a skill set. That is, unless you're a race hustler. And while we're on the subject, when a studious Black child is referred to as acting white, you know what? This grants an unwarranted claim of ownership on values, beliefs, and priorities that lead to success to whites. You're giving whites a copyright on that. More importantly, it keeps Blacks from embracing values, beliefs, and priorities that lead to success, and it keeps race hustlers employed and affluent with the money from impoverished Black communities. So with that said, racism is out there. It's been out there. It'll always be out there. And in my opinion, a fight to extinguish racism is about as futile as a fight to extinguish terrorism. It's always going to be there. So while you're living in a world with racism, let's try and embrace some of these values that are universal to success. I'm no expert on success, but I think some of the core things to being successful include such things as self-responsibility, patience, persistence, and focus. And with that, I'll conclude today, and I'll be back soon. Hope you're doing well. Bye-bye.